We welcome you to a Super Bowl wrap-up edition of Snap the Pigskin. I am Kedrick Stumbers, joined by Noah Clark, where today we are talking Eagles all over the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. How did they do it? Where do the Kansas City Chiefs go from here? Is this a model someone in the NFL is going to be able to replicate? Are the Chiefs doomed? Is their window shut? Noah, how you doing? How did you enjoy Super Bowl 40 or 59?
It was okay. I mean, like this was one of those kind of Super Bowls where it was kind of expected. Although I will say I was thoroughly happy seeing the Eagles beat the Chiefs and just, closing the door on an incredible postseason of pigskin picks here. So
that you did have. I mean, obviously I had the Chiefs wire to wire, but it's not hard, like we said last week, to see how this one could have and did go down. Of course I'm not surprised, or I am surprised that just at no point was Kansas City competitive in this one, but we looked at the matchup and said, I think Philly is just better. And it's just not all that surprising, all in. And that's first down here. The Philadelphia Eagles dominate the Kansas City Chiefs to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. The Philadelphia Eagles undefeated in Super Bowls in which they play their backup quarterback. As a fun fact there, as we see Kenny Pickett snaps in the Super Bowl. How do they do it? It all started with the Eagles' defensive front, because although this isn't just quite as dominant a unit as it was 2 years ago, I'd say arguably its composition now makes it more likely to have a performance like this. Noah, what do you make of the Philly defensive front putting together just a dynamite game in this one?
It's phenomenal performance by Philadelphia's defense. You look at this game, like the offense for the Eagles really didn't have to do much in this game. It was simply put with the defense, and they have one of the best defensive coordinators in all the game in Vic Fangio, just dialing up defenses. But it overall started with the defensive line and with the defensive front. I mean, they just got after Patrick Mahomes all game long, and it really was frustrating for the Chiefs all game long to just see Mahomes go down almost every single time. You do realize like this was a game where like the Chiefs, like offense, like usually in these type of games, they're able to adjust and able to attack the opponent. That was not the case here. Even when they adjusted, Philadelphia still came after them, and still came after them in a way of which, like, it just it seemed like Kansas City had no chance.
Right. It didn't matter because the Eagles were able to get pressure without bringing extra rushers on 42 dropbacks. They blitzed 0 times. There was no point in time in which Philadelphia brought an extra rusher in this game. This is the 4th defense in any game in the Next Gen Stats era to not blitz once. Not in any Super Bowl, the 4th time anyone did not blitz in a game. Not the 4th postseason game in which a defense did not blitz. It's the 4th game period, full stop, in which nobody on the Eagles blitzed. Yet they produced 16 pressures, sacked Patrick Mahomes 6 times, the most times in a game in his career he has been sacked. Unbelievable. When they can dial up pressure without anybody extra coming, and you have high-level defensive backs, what are you supposed to do?
You really
Nothing.
can't do anything at that point.
Right. It becomes a numbers problem at that point where
Yeah.
everybody's playing one-on-one. Okay. Your number one wide receiver is Travis Kelce. Like, good luck.
And Kelce had a terrible game.
Yeah.
Like, he was non-existent. Like, Taylor Swift kind of sucked the energy out of him, sucked all of his athleticism out of him after that game. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. Like 42, they had 42 dropbacks and 0 of them were blitzes. I think that's insane to think about. What also is insane too is Mahomes, really sucked in this game. Like this not only was an offensive problem, but it was a Patrick Mahomes problem. Like he sucked so badly in this game.
The pick thrown to Zach Bond, that one wasn't entirely his fault because he got a lineman thrown into him. But the pick that became a pick 6 by Cooper DeJean, Patrick Mahomes just never saw him.
Yeah.
Never. Just threw it directly to him. And disrespectful as hell for white boy cornerback in Black History Month to get the pick 6. For crying out loud. God.
You couldn't have said it any better.
I mean, hey, we end DEI initiatives at the presidential level, and all of a sudden we got white cornerbacks for pick 6 and
oh my God. God.
Yeah, he was bad. Throws off target, not seeing Cooper DeJean, which like the worst potential returner for you to miss, by the way. Anybody who's watched Big Ten football over the last few seasons could tell you that. Yeah, really not good. He didn't get help from guys like Travis Kelce, who dropped a couple of balls. Kelce also, I know he is not a blocker. That's not what you bet on your team for, but man, did he just get worked over at points in this game?
Constantly.
Yeah, he looks old, and he got old fast, as happens in the National Football League. Quarterback that did deliver and delivered himself a Super Bowl MVP award, though, of course, is Jalen Hurts. I don't think I would have given him the Super Bowl MVP. I understand what this was because he played a near flawless game. He did throw a pick, and a pick that I don't think was a very good pick either, which ultimately, when Philly's defense was so dominant in this one, is probably why I wouldn't give Jalen Hurts the MVP, but he did his dang job. He threw a deep ass ball to Devonta Smith.
So deep.
And put it right on the money. Crimson Tide to Crimson Tide. And what else can you ask for out of that quarterback who, man, just an unreal story.
Yeah.
For Jalen Hurts to be the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I mean, first quarterback of the very famous 2020 draft class to win the Super Bowl,
yeah,
which is insane to think about. I mean, you look at all the great quarterbacks that came out of that class, and
he was the fifth taken.
Yeah,
fifth taken in that class.
And the fact that it wasn't like the fact
Tua
that he was
at 5, Jordan Love at 26, Justin Herbert at 6, Joe Burrow at 1-1. Jalen Hurts after all that.
And this is also
Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, all taken ahead of him.
Well, and this is also too, keep in mind, he also had to sit behind Carson Wentz, who was also already there. Right. So like there had already been a starting quarterback cemented in that team. And the fact that the fact that he was able to beat out Carson Wentz, get the starting job, and be able to carry this Eagles team, really impressive. And I think it just
Carson Wentz, who, like, I understand he's not in the league now, but the year Philly won the Super Bowl. Whatever. The year Philly won the Super Bowl, before Carson Wentz got injured, he was going to be the NFL MVP.
He was very much on track to being the MVP. Like, there was no doubt about it. Like that's one of the bigger what ifs. Like what if Carson Wentz does not get hurt? Like they win the Super Bowl and Wentz probably walks away with the MVP that season. And we may not be having this conversation at all. What we do have to have the conversation of is how amazing of a trade it was for Carson Wentz, because they were able to use him into getting the players that were part of that team. And I got to give credit to Howie Roseman. I know in the past, Philadelphia Eagles fans have had so much beef with Howie Roseman and just the way that he drafts, but like, he's won 2 Super Bowls. I mean, the man knows what he's doing when it comes to the offseason and when it comes to drafting. I mean, just look at the Carson Wentz trade. Let's just look at the Carson Wentz trade, for example.
While we do that, let's transition to second down here. Yeah. We obviously saw what happened on the field with the Eagles. I mean, it was just a domination of a performance defensively that the Chiefs never had any answers for, and that's how they won. Second down, the Eagles are a juggernaut. And they turned a late season collapse in 2023 that we'll detail in a moment here into this. And yeah, it kind of does start with trading Carson Wentz. So Noah, yes, give us the details here.
So this was the Carson Wentz trade. What was this? This was 2021. Yes. 2021. They traded Carson Wentz. Traded him for a plethora of draft picks. 2021, they traded Carson Wentz. That year, they got Devontae Smith in the 2021 draft. And they used that 3rd round pick from the Colts in that Wentz deal. That was part of that deal to try and trade up to get Devontae Smith. Yes. So that's 2021. 2022, the first round pick that was from the Saints via the pick from the Colts. They used that pick in 2022 to acquire A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans. So now you got your number 1 wide receiver and you got your number 2 wide receiver on top of that. And then in 2023 and in 2024, they're able to snag Jalen Carter and Cooper DeJean in these last 2 drafts. And they used the Saints picks to move up to get these 2 players. I mean,
and let's not forget the Jalen Carter of it all. The only reason he was there, and like
he fell. He fell.
Yeah, because
people their arms
at the University of Georgia cannot stop drag racing and killing people in Athens. Like
I mean, you look at this.
That's a 1-1 tier player in Jalen Carter that they got to drop down to midway into the first round. That the Eagles became the on the field beneficiaries of just a tragic, horrific situation that went down in Athens.
And keep in mind too, like you look at it, they also had the year before Jordan Davis, who also kind of got into the same situation as well with Jalen Carter. So it was a great fix for them because they had Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham already there that were 2 veterans in the prior Philly, regime. So just massive stuff from Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's huge. And this is largely how this team's built, is building it through the draft. And then this year they had some of these draft acquisitions that were huge for them. You mentioned Cooper DeJean, but that's a 2nd round pick in the defensive backs. One of 2 defensive rookie of the year finalists on this team. The first being Quinion Mitchell, kind of secretly the best defensive back in college football 2 seasons ago now. Out of Toledo, and he gets drafted by them, and they kind of fix their secondary overnight in the same kind of way that Detroit was able to this offseason as well, that I know we've talked about a lot. Both just lockdown defensive backs, finalists for defensive rookie of the year. And even in the 3rd round this year, they go and get Jalix Hunt, who this time a year ago was coming off a season at Houston Christian, an FCS school, and then he has a sack on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It's not like Jalix Hunt was like a wrecking ball all year, but he is a young, impressionable rookie who provided just the perfect kind of depth piece to go with that defensive line that anybody could ask for, and just came along throughout the entire postseason. Yeah, really impressive building through the draft by them too. But it's also free agent signings. And Noah, would you like to wax poetic about Zach Bond and his interception in the Super Bowl?
Just bravo. Like, sums up the year Zach Bond has been having.
Mhm.
Like, I want to say this with the Eagles, but like the Eagles, just to me, it's just when we look at this team and how they became a juggernaut, it's just simply they drafted well, and they also took risks in the draft, and they took risks in free agency. Like, you don't trade for an AJ Brown if you know that there's going to be some certain risk to it, and they did, and they took that risk, and he was one of the best receivers on that team this year. In free agency, they took a risk on Saquon Barkley. I mean, and a risk on Zach Bond, who, by the way, I've said this on multiple times on the show. He was supposed to be a special teamer. He came in as a special teamer, and they moved him to middle linebacker, and he has been phenomenal and was a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year this year. Should have won it. But that's okay. And then Saquon Barkley, just I can't believe how stupid the Giants are. I bring this back. Like, earlier today, they announced they're not doing off-season hard knocks anymore because of last year potentially with the Giants. And the Giants are going to be kicking themselves in the foot for that one, because they just practically gifted the Eagles another championship. I mean, Saquon Barkley was already good enough with the Giants, but you put him on a team that actually knows how to use him and has the talent and somewhat actually has the quarterback. Like, it could elevate their offense to a whole nother level. And this year set the single record for most rushing yards in a season, including regular season and postseason. Terrell Davis had that record originally, but now he has it. And man, what a season from Saquon Barkley. I mean, and what an addition that was. The cherry on top to that team to get them back to the Super Bowl.
That's a great way to put it. And one other guy I would mention here is CJ Gardner-Johnson, playing at safety. He leaves Philly for a year in free agency after having 5 picks in Philly 2 years ago, despite missing, I think it was 6 games. They bring him back again this season to be a ball hawking safety, and he has 6 interceptions again this season. Like, it worked all over again and was a huge addition for them this offseason. I mean, 3 massively impactful signings. And Zach Bond, this brings back what I was talking about earlier, where they have built their personnel such that they can do this thing against Patrick Mahomes where they don't necessarily have to blitz, because Bond, being a linebacker kicked inside from outside, has that ability to go and rush the passer, and they can drop a different defensive lineman into coverage, which is a thing they did, I think, 2 or 3 times during this game, where Bond then goes out and has a big hit on Patrick Mahomes in doing it too. It's a wildly impressive use of the personnel on that defense by Vic Fangio. Unsurprising, of course, to see that coming from the Fangio mind. And to wrap all this up on the Philly of it all, unless, Noah, you have something else, I'm just going to add big picture wise. From December 2023 to October of 2024, this was the Eagles, who the fan base was calling for the firing of their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
This was a team that looked like it was on pace for the number 1 seed in the NFC last season. They didn't even win their division. They finished 2023 1-5, added a 6th loss to be 1-6 when they went 1 and done in the playoffs at Tampa. They went 2-2 to start this season. So from December of 2023 through October of 2024, this was a 3-8 football team. You know, different rosters, different compositions, but
Right.
like as a franchise, things were not going well on the football field. 3 wins in 11 games. Then they've gone 16-1 since. 16-1 since. Their sole loss was a 3-point loss in an all but walk-off touchdown fashion by Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders that they then avenged by beating the crap out of that same team in the NFC title game this year.
Yeah, 95 points at a total of 2 games. Like the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
That is insane. And yeah, it all kind of stems back to how the 2023 season ended for them. I mean, they were on a really good trajectory. Mind you, they were the year before in the Super Bowl in 2022 and just trying to get themselves back and trying to avenge what had, a loss in the Super Bowl. And yeah, they had that terrible losing streak and they got the doors blown off them by Tampa Bay. And they come back the next season and yeah, they put it all out there. And I give credit to this Eagles team and I give credit to Nick Sirianni just a little bit because there were some things that he did that I think really helped this team. 2 things being the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. And Kellen Moore coming in from the Cowboys was a big pickup for this team. I mean, he's going to be the coach of the New Orleans Saints. There's a reason why. And it's because he was a phenomenal offensive coordinator back when he was with Dallas, phenomenal offensive coordinator coming into Philadelphia. Okay, we bring that mind to the Eagles. And then the defensive side, Vic Fangio. And I just want to say this too. The Miami Dolphins were shouting for Vic Fangio to be fired. Okay. Miami Dolphin fans must be kicking themselves right now. Like you don't kick Vic Fangio out of your building. You do not want him gone because he's just going to come back even stronger. And it was a great fit for this Philadelphia team. They had the linebackers. They had the defensive front. He has been known throughout his career. His defense runs through his linebackers and it runs through that defensive front. And he's got the perfect setup to do it. And with those 2 moves that Sirianni made, this team was incredible the whole season. I mean, number 1, they finished the year number 1 in total defense. They were really impressive throughout the playoffs. I think they led the postseason in turnovers. And
yeah, gotta be.
and it was, I mean, because you look at it, they led the postseason by far in turnovers. So
Yeah.
I do give Sirianni his flowers. Like when he gave up play calling and gave it to Kellen Moore, I think that was a very smart move.
Mhm.
And switching the defense up and going to Vic Fangio, I think was a very bold move as well. Because Fangio, mind you, too, yeah, in Miami, the Dolphins fans wanted him gone, but it's also too Miami really didn't have a good team down there, and he went to a better team that could utilize his strengths. So,
can we do my discourse hot take here on Philly's path to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, go ahead.
That seem accurate? I don't even think this is necessarily something to take away or like to isn't necessarily a take that should be seen as me detracting from the Eagles winning a Super Bowl, because I think you have to get lucky. You just have to in order to do it. It's the only way any of this works, right? It's the Chiefs getting to the Super Bowl, for them, incredibly lucky. They were not the best team in the AFC this year. They weren't the second best team in the AFC this year. But that, to the Chiefs' luck of just getting there, was also to the Eagles' luck of them getting to play Kansas City in this Super Bowl, a team that we thought was significantly outmatched by Philadelphia. Noah, the best team by DVOA that the Eagles played in this postseason was whom?
The Green Bay Packers.
It was the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
And although Green Bay did not have the lowest margin of loss to Philly in this postseason, that was Los Angeles. And this isn't even a like, oh, the Packers are better than we think kind of a thing, because I think still, like, the way the Packers lost was like it was flaws that existed on the Packers roster that we knew we'd been waiting for them to come to roost, and they did. But you flip that, like, Keyshawn Nixon fumble at the beginning of that game, maybe we're not talking about a Philly Super Bowl win, because these are the teams by DVOA that the Eagles played en route to their Super Bowl victory. It was Green Bay, third in DVOA. They then went on to play the LA Rams, which I think when I initially posted about this on the website formerly known as Twitter, I actually pulled the Chargers DVOA, so it's actually way worse. It's the Rams, who are 17th in DVOA.
Oh, gosh.
And then they played Washington, 10th. And then they got to play Kansas City, which today sits at 8th, as in the 4th best team in the AFC, because Denver has a better DVOA than Kansas City does.
Yeah.
But, like, even take that out of the equation, I think we all know Baltimore and Buffalo were far and away better teams than Kansas City this year.
By far. Like, I mean, like, both of them had way better teams, and the offenses were way better.
And Kansas City, to get by Buffalo to begin with, got to play a Buffalo team that got lucky to get by Baltimore in the first place.
Right.
Because Baltimore was the better team, not just on the season overall, but Baltimore was the better team on that day. Baltimore was the better team down to down, but, like, got screwed by bounces and turnovers and whatnot in that divisional round game. That was Philly getting to play two wild card teams, the worst division winner in the NFC by far in the Rams, and then the 4th best team in the AFC.
It's basically like the Celtics run from last year. is what we're basically saying right now. This is the Celtics run from last year. Just didn't play anybody really good, and then you play probably the 4th or 5th best team all year and just take it to them for 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that, but there's also, like, if they were to play Detroit instead of Minnesota, right? Or sorry, if they were to play Detroit, instead of Washington, what even is Detroit? Because Detroit, yes, finished 2nd in DVOA, but that team with injuries was something of a shell of itself, right? Like, almost harder to play a divisional opponent that you did lose to once already this season. It's not something that ever comes easy. Everybody's got to get a little bit lucky. And I think we knew these teams, like we mentioned, that we thought were maybe juggernauts in the NFC, probably weren't that. And would have been so much more fun to watch Baltimore in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, it's all I'm kind of saying at the end of it. Like, because you know what? I think Philly at the end of the year probably was the best team in the NFC. But you know what? I'm not convinced they were the best team in the league. I think there's a dang good chance they were. But all these lucky bounces that go Kansas City's way all year long lead to the fact that Baltimore or Buffalo have to go through one another just to get to Kansas City. And that kind of gave us just a real craptastic Super Bowl at the end of it, thanks to, a Leo Chenal block and an Isaiah Likely toe in week 1 and all this stuff, right? Like,
so stupid. So stupid. And I mean, like, it would have been probably exciting too. Like, can you imagine Lamar Jackson versus Jalen Hurts instead of Patrick Mahomes?
Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that would have been must-see TV. I would have enjoyed that as well. It's just kind of funny too how all year long the Chiefs luck went all the way up to the Super Bowl, and then basically it's like, okay, you guys got there, now it's on your own. You guys got to do whatever. So,
let's talk about this Kansas City Chiefs team here for a little bit, because what has happened to them? Is this the end of their Super Bowl window? I don't know for sure. I do think in theory you always have something of a chance with Patrick Mahomes there. But in a season, Noah, defined by the Kansas City Chiefs gutting it out thanks to their defense, the defense couldn't make up for the offense in this one. Noah, do you fault the Kansas City defense in this one much at all, or are you simply laying it at the feet of Patrick Mahomes, the receivers, the offensive line? Where are you laying fault?
I'm laying it on that entire offense because, all year long, it's all year long. We've been saying, the Chiefs defense is the whole reason why they're staying in these games, why they have been so good at, keeping these games close.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense, I don't blame the defense at all. The offense really kind of screwed the Chiefs defense twice in this game, which kind of closed the deal. I mean, you look at the pick 6 by Cooper DeJean, that was a tough one. And then the interception by Zach Bond, to start the drive to where the Chiefs now are having to stop the Eagles, or trying to stop the Eagles from scoring at their own, 10-yard line. There was a lot of times just in this game where the Chiefs offense put their defense against a wall.
I couldn't agree more. I was thinking about the fact that the Eagles scored 40 points in this game, but like you mentioned, Cooper DeJean pick 6, a Zach Bond pick that 2 plays later turns into a touchdown. That's 14 points.
Mm-hmm.
That's 26 points scored by the Philly offense, and that's including the bomb to Devonta Smith. 26 points. And I know the Chiefs rather, had their challenges in scoring 30 points this season, but if you, as the Kansas City Chiefs defense, allow only 26 points, you expect your offense to be able to go out there and do something in order to give you a chance. And yeah, the Chiefs scored 22 points in this game, but garbage time bomb to Xavier Worthy and whatever, what have you. Different game. The Chiefs defense did enough here. I am pretty much solely leaving the blame at the feet of the Chiefs offense after this one. And I think that they have 2 major issues. The first of which is, of course, the offensive line.
It's bad.
One of the worst units in the league this year. They allowed pressure on 24% of dropbacks this season. That's 6th worst in the league.
Yeah, it was bad. Bad.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about it other than that. I know they had some injury issues, and when you're going up against that Philly defensive front, that's a problem. But in the more sexy conversation is the receiver talent. There is nothing.
Yeah.
Here. And I think Xavier Worthy is going to be something. And I think he's getting there, and I think you saw that flashed at the end of the game. But Travis Kelce had his worst season of his career this year in receiving yards, touchdowns, and yards per catch. And he led Kansas City in receiving this year.
Mm-hmm. That's bad. And
It's really bad.
well, and you also look at it too. I mean, Kansas City had a couple things that, uh, to this offense that kind of crippled them. I mean, they lose Rashee Rice. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have Rashee Rice. They didn't have
Mm-hmm.
Sky Moore,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have McCole Hardman. So right there, like those are three wide receivers that could ultimately help you in this lineup. And two of them were starters on the Super Bowl team from last year. Or actually, all three of them were starters on the Super Bowl team from last year. McCole Hardman, Rashee Rice, and Sky Moore. All three of them had big roles. So that's the tough part about it, because you look at it, by the end of the season, they have Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Xavier Worthy as their three wide receivers. So there's a reason why Travis Kelce led the team in receiving. It's because he had no help. He didn't have any help at the wide receiver position this year, and it was terrible. And I do think, yeah, Xavier Worthy, he looks like a star, but like, man, they have got to figure out that wide receiving core. They cannot come in and just simply think that they're like the New England Patriots and their quarterback covers up all the issues of the wide receiver problem. That's not with Patrick Mahomes. Like, Mahomes is a completely different type of quarterback. You need wide receivers around him to where he can be able to show off his abilities. That's why when they had Tyreek Hill, it was so fun watching Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill was a great short, intermediate, and deep ball passer, and he helped the Chiefs get that big play ability, and was able to showcase Mahomes' ability as a quarterback. So,
yeah,
you're not doing that with like DeAndre Hopkins, who is like what, 33, 34. You're not doing that with him.
Absolutely not. I mean, no, it did hurt them, but like McCole Hardman was injured just after Thanksgiving, in that Raiders game, and Sky Moore was injured just before Halloween. I think it was Rashee Rice was injured in week 4. Let me make sure I have that right. I think I may have Sky Moore and Rashee Rice. No, I don't. Rashee Rice was week 4. Yeah, so early. Yeah, I mean that ultimately did them in, I think. I just don't know how the offense clicks with the guys around him otherwise. I guess I'm a little surprised we didn't get more from Xavier Worthy out of this season, but
I will say an underrated position that really struggled this year was running back too. I think
that's where my head went to next.
Yeah. I think that was an underrated position that really struggled. Isaiah Pacheco didn't, was out for most of the season with an injury. And they kind of relied on Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, and they just never materialized a run game. It
is impressive that they got this far with basically no skill talent on offense. There's basically no skill talent, but it's not even like Patrick Mahomes was forcing awesome plays because of it, right? And that's kind of what you would expect to be able to throw flowers out Mahomes' way because of this. But it was just like, nah, they just came up and said, all right, defense, come bail us out. We're not scoring 30 today. We're not scoring 30 tomorrow. We're not scoring 30 the day after that. No chance.
Oh, God. Well, but next year they'll have it'll be interesting how the draft will fare for them. They've got a very tough offseason to look towards, because I don't want to say this is the end of their Super Bowl window, but I think it's getting close to that. I mean, this team offensively doesn't looks tired. Their offense looks stale at some points. You look at it with Mahomes this year in simply just yards, in yards per play. Mahomes has always ranked in the top 5 or top 10. 2023, he was ranked 9th. 2024, this year, he was ranked 22nd in yards per play. Not really good stuff. They just need to update their offense. And I think It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. You also look to the salary cap is going to be very. They're going to have some tough. They're going to have some tough decisions to make too this offseason. Like they right now in terms of dead cap or in terms of cap space, the Chiefs don't have a lot. They have 15 million in cap space right now. They have to re-sign some guys. And it also doesn't help that Patrick Mahomes has a monster deal.
Yeah.
So
they're not in an awful spot though. Like they're kind of in the spot you would expect any team that's contending to be.
Right. But it's also the offensive line is aging. Travis Kelce's aging. You need to find a plan.
That's what I'm most curious about is what happens when Travis Kelce is not on this team. Because there isn't another guy that I think of as something of a security blanket for Mahomes. And when you're shuffling receivers in and out like that, I think it becomes difficult to say, okay, who do we go to when we need a bucket?
Right.
I don't know who that is on this team anymore.
Well, they could look in the draft. That's what I think is going to be interesting about this draft too.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren could, to the Chiefs, that could be in a few people's mock drafts.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I know. It makes
I don't hate him on any team. I think he'd be awesome, but little gadgety guy like that. Yeah, I can see Andy Reid having a really fun time.
It fits with what Andy Reid likes to do. He's a pass catching tight end, but he could also go out in a lot of different ways. Just saying.
All right. Well, before we move on, that is the Super Bowl, and just if you have someone in your life who's a Cowboys and a Drake fan, just couldn't happen to a more deserving fan base. Is all.
All
right.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the halftime show. That was fun. Sam thought it was the worst halftime show ever in the history of the Super Bowl.
I saw somebody do a mock-up, and I don't know if this is true or not. They did a mock-up of the choreography and where Kedrick had to walk during the show, and said Kendrick Lamar had more yards than the Kansas City Chiefs offense in the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's true, but either way, amazing joke. All right.
And the Chiefs didn't get to 30 again too here.
Yeah,
only fitting.
We're going to do a little whip around of Super Bowl week news for the NFL before we wrap up the season here on Fourth Down. Somehow I stumbled into Aaron Rodgers news despite my best efforts. I guess they're moving off of him in New York.
He's going to Minnesota. It's as the prophecy has foretold. He's going to Minnesota.
Just because they want McCarthy to sit a year? Is that the thought?
I mean, I guess. I think they said they were sitting with Sam. They want to bring Sam Darnold back.
Well, if they're going to bring Sam Darnold back, they don't need Aaron Rodgers.
I know. But I know you can't disrespect the prophecy.
I don't know where he makes sense. Somebody's going to bite on him just because of the upside. I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is. I don't know if that is figuring out a way to make him work in Pittsburgh, because that's where I guess the glue factory is, with him and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. We'll see. I don't know what the Giants situation is like, given this quarterback draft class isn't awesome. But I don't think he'd want to do that anyways. I think he wants to go somewhere he thinks he can contend, but I don't know. I don't know that there's a great landing spot for him.
No, this is it's a tough spot for Aaron Rodgers because you look at a lot of these teams are set at their ways at quarterback, or really don't want a guy who's in his 40s being on their team. I mean, I could see Pittsburgh, but it's also like this is a revolving door with Pittsburgh. Like, how many more times are we going to see them take a quarterback who was once great and isn't as great as he used to be and is just average now? Like, we've seen that with Russell Wilson. We've seen that with Justin Fields. We've seen that somewhat with Kenny Pickett when Kenny Pickett was here. It's just, they need to figure out their quarterback situation. And I think if you were to bring in Aaron Rodgers to the mix, that's not a good fit. It's just not a good fit for me. Plus, Arthur Smith is the offense coordinator there. Like, it's not a good philosophy with what Arthur Smith wants to do and how he would fit with Aaron
that's
Rodgers.
my thing, and how I think about this as well is like, where does the fit come in?
Mm-hmm.
Because I start thinking about the fringy playoff teams, and I think of guys like, I think of teams like Seattle. Is Aaron Rodgers gonna want to go play under Clint Kubiak? Is Seattle gonna move on from Geno Smith? I don't know. I don't know that that's a perfect fit either.
I think if
Aaron Rodgers, what he seems to want to do, although he doesn't like Mike McCarthy anymore, so he's not going to go play. He's not going to wait out a Mike McCarthy season, I guess.
no,
Like, he doesn't want to do all this motion and movement stuff that's under the Shanahan stuff and these LaFleur-like offenses. I don't see him working with a Clint Kubiak either for kind of that same reason. Rodgers is going to want to go where he's going to be able to paint his own destiny. So I don't know. I don't know who that is.
I think I'd put out one team here, maybe the New Orleans Saints, just because like it could be like you could sign him to a 1-year deal, and maybe because let's say they draft a quarterback this year, and they could sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal, and they don't have to start, whoever. Let's say hypothetical. We're going to play a hypothetical game. Let's say they draft Cam Ward and they have Cam Ward sit a year. They sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal. He can sit. He can learn. He can learn the offense. Plus, Kellen Moore, offensive-minded coach. It's a good fit. The only downside I would say to that is he wouldn't be able to win right away. I mean, it would be tough.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. I'm not convinced on the fit, and also I don't know that makes sense. I think that's still a longer term build, and I think New Orleans is starting to dedicate themselves to that longer term build. So I don't know. Our second piece of news here, like we did talk about, is Kellen Moore is headed to New Orleans. Not really a surprise there, as they waited out the Super Bowl to go and get him. Despite Nick Sirianni's pleas after the game to say, let's go run it back. Does not happen. I mean, that's good. That's tongue in cheek. You'll have.
He's got Vic Fangio. He should be fine.
Yeah. Interested to see what's going to happen in Philly, but Noah, any initial reactions to Kellen Moore in New Orleans, or what comes next at the offensive coordinator spot in Philly?
This is a good spot. I think this is a good hiring. I think, like with Kellen Moore in the head coaching cycle, his name has popped up multiple times through the last couple head coaching cycles. So his name has been out there, and we've seen what his offenses can do in Dallas and in Philadelphia. Like, we've seen it. They are some good offenses. They are a mix of pass and they're a mix of run. They can wear you down, or they can score in droves with a passing game. And this is going to be an interesting situation. I think for the Saints, they need to just give Kellen Moore some time. Like, this is a head coaching hire where you don't want to force him into a situation where you're expecting him to turn this team right around and get them the playoffs their first year. That's just not going to happen. They have to give him that plan of, okay, look, we're going to bring you in here. You got 3 to 4 years to try and get this team right. We're not going to fire you. We're going to see if you can develop this team. We're going to try and do our best in the offseason to try and build this team back up. I think it's also bold for Kellen Moore to go take this job, given the fact that they are minus 51 million.
Yeah. I think there's some assurances there that, like, hey, we know this is going to take a while. Like, otherwise, I don't think he's a guy who I think has had enough of his choices to go and take jobs.
Yeah.
Where I think he's probably trustworthy that he's going to get a little bit of time here.
I agree. I mean, like, which is why I think the Saints will give him time to just kind of marinate this team and just kind of get this team to where it needs to be in a couple of years. A great example of that is the 49ers. Like, you look at the 49ers.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, you look with the 49ers. They had, with Kyle Shanahan, they gave Kyle Shanahan, I think, what was it, 3 years? And in 3 years, they wound up going to the Super Bowl. So, like, it takes time with these organizations. When you have a cap issue, you don't have a quarterback, you're just trying to find your way. This is a good hire. I think it's going to work out, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for the fans down there in New Orleans.
On the flip side of replacing Kellen Moore in Philly, can I interest you in a guy who is available on the market, has won a Super Bowl, and has coaching experience in Philadelphia?
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I think you're saying who I think you're saying here.
Can I interest you in one? Doug Peterson.
Doug Peterson. Oh, that would be the funniest thing ever. Oh.
I mean, there's just no way.
That's as funny as the Broncos hiring Vance Joseph back as their DC.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Mike LaFleur sitting as the offensive coordinator in LA, but obviously he's not calling plays under Sean McVay. He'd be interesting. I know Kevin Patula, whatever the heck his name is, the passing game coordinator, etc., in Philly probably makes a ton of sense. He's not a Kellen Moore guy. He's actually a Nick Sirianni guy, arrived over with him. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what it is Sirianni does, whether he goes back and kind of hires a guy who's been with him for a while, or if he goes external again. So that'll be fascinating. Our last piece is, what on earth is the plan with the Los Angeles Rams? While we are on the topic, maybe that's a reason Mike LaFleur, the brother of Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, might want out of there. Sounds like Cooper Kupp is going to be trying to get his way out. Sounds like they are maybe planning on moving off of Matthew Stafford there. Very interesting time to start blowing up that Los Angeles Rams team, because I kind of thought they were a little bit plug and play. Noah, thoughts on the latest musings out of Los Angeles?
Yeah, I am very puzzled as to why they let Matthew Stafford go. I mean, with Cooper Kupp, it makes somewhat of sense, because he's getting up there in age. They want to start bringing in younger talent. Mm-hmm. I can understand that. You know, they hit on Puka Nacua. They're going to get another first round pick this year. They're going to get, maybe a chance to hit on a first round wide receiver, maybe, try for day 2. So I could see them getting rid of Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford, though, that is a very interesting one. I don't think the Rams should get rid of Stafford. He is so valuable to that team, and he has probably 2, maybe 3 good years left for this Rams team. I mean, you look at it, they were able to claw themselves back to where they win the division. They win the NFC West, and they were almost like a minute away from beating the Eagles and going to the NFC Championship game. Like, this was a thing. And not only that, but like, the Rams played well against the Vikings, a 14-win team. There's so many things that you could say about Matthew Stafford this season that haven't already been said. But The thing that I will say is, it would be a huge loss to this Rams team if they were to trade him. He is so valuable to that group. He knows that offense so well. And for them to just blow it up and get rid of Stafford when he probably still has two good years left of ball, it is a head-scratching move.
Do you know which team we have mentioned earlier in this segment that might be looking for a stopgap quarterback whose head coach was the offensive coordinator on the Los Angeles Rams team that won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford?
Oh, the Minnesota Vikings.
That would be the one. Kevin O'Connell, offensive coordinator.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think that we saw what last year Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold. And
yeah, you think you can get Sam Darnold-esque production out of Matthew Stafford at this age?
Hey,
probably.
I mean, but the way the offense is tailored, it's tailored to where the quarterback becomes the superstar, and it just it just makes so much sense too. What I know is the Lions would be really pissed if he were to come back and play for a division rival, especially if it's the Vikings.
Yep. All right, let's bring home the bacon here. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not convinced that Jalen Hurts should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. I don't have any problems with it because I thought he did play an excellent game. I thought he was largely on target throughout the entire night. He did everything that was asked of him, and not just in check down fashion. He aired out some balls, but
he was hurting the defense.
Yeah, when the real MVP of this game was Philly defensive unit, I feel inclined to recognize that and give the Super Bowl slab of bacon to Josh Sweat, who had 6 tackles in this one, 2.5 sacks, hit the quarterback 3 times. Impressive day by Josh Sweat. I mean, you could hand this out at any point in time to anybody. I mean, Zach Bond is obviously up there as a candidate as well. Jalen Carter didn't have gaudy numbers in this one, but he made a mess of things in the middle of that line. He was impressive. This entire Philly defense was impressive. And so I etched Josh Sweat's name on the slab of bacon here. Noah, any other lingering thoughts about who may have been Super Bowl MVP or should take home the bacon following Super Bowl 59?
I wish they could give it to a coach, because I'd give Vic Fangio the honors there. Just a phenomenal defensive performance. They made Mahomes' life a living hell, and that's all there is to it.
Yep. All right, let's wrap up our pigskin picks for the season. Although Noah did not quite catch me with the playoffs, ended up about 40 points off with that one. He did outperform myself during the entirety of the playoffs, by, not a super hefty margin, but off by 184 points, the final margin of victory. Noah off by 172. So 12 points overall with the number of playoff games. It's around, 1 point per game that you had on me, which was pretty solid. But the regular season kind of ran away with it there. 630 points off the final margin of victory to Noah's 681 at the end of it all. Obviously, more games than that regular season. But you shined down the stretch here, Noah. So congratulations to you, and we'll try to do better next year.
Yeah, I gotta say, I clutched up during the playoffs. I had to give my best Patrick Mahomes performance when it came to picks. So
that you did, and not even that, like it was us flip-flopping sides of games all too often. That didn't happen. I think with any game that did not involve the Chiefs. But us each coming out 1-1 on the opposite side of that one. Me taking them in the AFC title game when you refused to, and then vice versa in the Super Bowl, or same thing in the Super Bowl, but opposite result. Turned out well. So that is Snap the Pigskin for this year. I think we are taking next week off. I have to go to Mexico City to go scout out where the NFL is going to cancel its next international game.
Oh
I gotta go
man.
take care of that. But we'll be back probably in 2 weeks to a larger picture wrap up of the NFL season, revisit some of our bold takes. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? And look ahead a little bit to 2025, what we can learn from 2024 before free agency starts, the draft in Green Bay, all of the excellent stuff. So Noah, thank you very much for having me on with you this season. I'm looking forward to us continuing to do it all together. We got to get together more often this upcoming season to watch football. I think is the goal going into next year. But otherwise, I think we had a solid run here.
It was a very good run. I once again thank you for coming on and helping out this year. And we got a whole off season. I did enjoy the laughs that we had this year and all the funny moments that we had. But yeah, we definitely got to watch more football. Me and you the next year. That's gonna be it's got to be our main priority next season.
Hard to do it with
because I know you're busy. You're busy because you got like Badger Sports, and then you have your show as well, the Sconnie Six Pack.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to watch Wisconsin Purdue on Saturday. Well, I'm in Ciudad de Mexico, so we'll see about.
You can't get it on is it on Peacock?
So a lot of these, it's Paramount Plus, or it's a CBS game. So maybe I can do Paramount Plus, but a lot of these streaming services, they don't work the same way abroad that they do work in the US because of different agreements and whatnot, different television agreements and everything. So I don't know. I might have to get creative with how I watch the basketball game on Saturday.
There's also Stream East. You could go
I've never heard of her. That's going to do it for Snap the Pigskin. For Noah Clark, I am Kedrick Stumbris. You can watch us weekly, except for next week, on YouTube, youtube.com/@snapthepigskin. Listen wherever you get podcasts while you are there. Leave us a kind review, 5 stars, kind comments. It's the least you can do for listening this far for free. Until we talk to you all again very soon, snap the pigskin. I mixed 2 shows outros.